Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. I've been writing this episode for almost 2 years at this point, because one of the things that I love to do as part of my work and working with leaders is I love to study patterns. So I will see a certain kind of pattern emerging, and then I'll obsess over watching that pattern through data points. I'll listen for it. I'll kind of just really dig into it in any way possible. And the reason I love doing that is I find it really interesting, but it really helps me bring insight into my clients, to the schools that I work with, to the leaders that I work with. Because when you're inside your role as a school leader, it's very difficult to see any kind of perspective outside of your school. So even when you go to industry events, you're hearing a lot of the same circuit and the same information regurgitating. And so I find that these conversations help us really invite us to look at something from a different perspective. So there was this thing that I started to track, which is, why does this industry promote faster than any other industry almost in the world? Because there's a real challenge with promoting teachers into leadership too fast. So if you've ever promoted a teacher or anyone too early, hoping that things would feel lighter, things would feel easier, and instead you found yourself caring more, this conversation's for you. Because it's not necessarily that you chose the wrong person to promote, or that you missed something obvious, or whatever it is, or you're not good at leadership or discernment or promotion or whatever it is. Early childhood asks leaders to do something that no other industry does and gives them no runway to do it well. All right. So I want you to come sit with me here for a little bit. So there's a quiet crisis in early childhood that I think is slowly starting to be named, but it's not named outright yet. We promote far too early than any other field. Not because owners don't care, not because staff are incapable, but because the industry is built on urgency, exhaustion, emotional labor, and survival. Other industries have leadership pipelines. Early childhood has leadership vacancies. And so when someone warm, steady, or less reactive than other people steps forward, they get pulled into leadership way before they're prepared for it. And this is not a personal failure or an individual school failure. This is an infrastructure failure, because other industries build leaders. So I want to kind of widen the lens for you here for a moment, okay? In medicine, no one becomes a surgeon because they care about patients. Okay. If you want to become a surgeon, you have to move through years of training, medical school, rotations, residency, fellowship. Responsibility slowly increases over time. Stress is introduced intentionally, slowly over time through and recalibration. And mentorship is built into the process of becoming a surgeon. In the restaurant industry, okay, let's take a different industry. And I love the restaurant industry. I think for me, the restaurant industry is such a great industry to study as far as excellence, hospitality, all of these things. There's so many things to learn from the restaurant industry. In general, I love studying industries and seeing how we can bring those industries into the early childhood sector. But one of the industries that I love to study is the restaurant industry. But nobody becomes a head chef because they like food. Okay. Or they're like, this sauce pairs really well with this kind of cut of meat, or this wine goes really well with this kind of meat. Okay. No. You want to become a head chef. The path is long, it is structured, and it is brutally developmental. Okay. You become a dishwasher. Then you become a prep cook. Then you become a line cook. Then you become a sous chef. Then maybe you become a head chef. Okay. Every single step of becoming a head chef, right, requires skill under pressure, mastery of technique, consistency, speed, discernment, the ability to lead a brigade under chaos. Before a leader ever steps foot into that space as a head chef of a kitchen, they have logged thousands of hours of repetition and rigor. And so they rise through the ranks because they know how to execute under heat. They can manage a team during dinner rush. They know how to train other people on their brigade. A head chef is not the only person who's cooking. They have to know how to lead their brigade. Okay. They know how to enforce standards. They know how to maintain discipline. They know how to run a consistent system. They have to earn responsibility through stamina, not personality, stamina. And there are a lot of other industries, right? But these are two examples. Okay. The path in early childhood is teacher, assistant director, director. Okay. There's like 3 steps. There's no scaffolding. There's no developmental runway. And in a lot of schools, the path is even shorter. It goes teacher, director. Okay. Because the criteria for promotion in early childhood is not competence. It is not competence. The criteria for promotion in early childhood is who is the person who gets along with everyone? Who's the person who's really great with kids? Who's the person who never complains? Who's the person who parents love? Who's the person who stays calm? Who's the person who's been here the longest? So how does early childhood do it? The field runs on exhaustion, not infrastructure. The field only moves by who is the least exhausted that day. So owners are drowning, as they are in a crazy amount of work, okay? And they promote from desperation. And so emotional labor is mistaken for leadership. Being nurturing with kids equates being able to lead adults. No. Being nurturing with kids does not mean that you have the relational stamina to lead grown-ups. Warmth is misidentified as readiness. It's not. Okay? If she's warm, she'll lead well is false. You cannot hug an adult into accountability. You cannot hug an adult into accountability. People become accountable when they meet the edge of their comfort zone, when they hit friction, when there are consequences, when there are standards, when there are rhythms. I talk about all of that in part 3 of my book, This Can't Be Normal. And so owners want relief. And so there's a little bit of this quiet truth of like, okay, if I promote her, she'll fix the drama, she'll stop the chaos, she'll handle the emotions, she'll take things off my plate and run with it. But the person who we promote has not been trained how to set standards, how to hold a consequence, how to lead a difficult conversation without collapsing to people pleasing, how to analyze enrollment data, how to speak in clarity instead of comfort, how to guide teachers on performance, how to actually build rhythms and systems, how to hold boundaries. She is promoted because of her ability to soothe and emotionally regulate the room, not her ability to lead. So what's the consequence of doing this? Well, the title changes, but the emotional labor doesn't. So this is why leaders have these elaborate org charts with owners, directors, regionals, curriculum specialists, enrollment specialists, this kind of thing. You have like top heavy leadership. But if I put your org chart under a heat map, all of the blinking light of pressure sits under you. Because we have built an entire field on warmth and love, but we have not built the relational stamina to match it. And that is a crisis. We hand out titles without building capacity. We reward emotional availability without cultivating emotional endurance and relational stamina. Adults do not grow through discomfort. Adults grow through stamina, and stamina is built slowly with rhythm, standards, clarity, and consequence. That is the work that our field has never done, and it is the work that we must do now. We must do this work, because if we constantly mistake an emotional labor for leadership, that being nurturing with children means that you're going to be able to hold adults accountable when those are completely different muscles, when we continue to mistake warmth for readiness, warmth will open the door. It doesn't build stamina, right? And underneath this thing, there's such a longing for relief of like, this person's going to calm everything down. This person will handle all of the issues. And so you just are passing the emotional labor to the next person. And we want relief and we need to be able to promote people, but we need to cultivate the relational stamina that it takes to build that. And one of the most important components of relational stamina when you're promoting a leader is discernment. That's why discernment is one of the anchors that I write about in my book, This Can't Be Normal. And discernment, one of the ways discernment is built, obviously it's built through rhythm. And one of the rhythms to build discernment is mentorship. because mentorship is one of the only places where there's a consistent witness to your evolution and to your growth or to your ability to stay stuck and stunted. And so when you are developing a leader and wanting to promote them into the next level of leadership, they need mentorship and coaches who are going to guide them and show them their growth and celebrate their wins and show them their blind spots. Mentorship, and this is something that I talk about consistently in my Leadership HQ program, where we work with owners and directors and their entire leadership teams. One of the things that I ask in interviews when I interview people is not just how do you handle stress. I want to know how you celebrate wins, because a person who doesn't celebrate wins is going to be just as dysregulated as someone who's dysregulated under stress. If you never know how to pause and celebrate, that means you're constantly shifting goalposts, which means you're going to get burnt out. Part of promoting teachers into leaders is they need to have the capacity and the ability to discern, when do I push this person? When do I hold back? When do I invite them into the next level? When do I give them the next stretch goal? When are they showing me a pattern of staying in a loop of trying to avoid accountability versus, oh my gosh, this person actually needs to be invited into the next level or invited out of the building? That's discernment. That is not something that you have in a clear step-by-step workflow chart of like, if this, then that, if this, then that. No. Discernment. And discernment is a relational stamina muscle that is built through consistent, predictable rhythms of connection to grow their discernment muscle. And there are multiple other rhythms, and I talk about that inside of my book. So we don't need to fix this field, okay? We need to bring in tools, rhythms, and language that match the level of weight that is required to lead. That's why I wrote this book, This Can't Be Normal, and it is waiting for you, not as a solution to all of your problems, okay? That's not what this book is. It is a companion and a map and a guide to steady leadership. Because when we look at what will it take to actually have a field that is not built on exhaustion, but is built on actual infrastructure. Infrastructure means that no one person is the shock absorber of the stress. Infrastructure means there are standards, there are protocols, there are rhythms, there are guardrails, there are escalations. All of those things are things that I talk about inside of my book, This Can't Be Normal. Click the link in the show notes. You can get a copy. You can get a copy wherever books are sold. I hope that today's conversation has, more than anything, just invited a disruption of thinking. If you were thinking of promoting someone, pausing for a second and say, what is a skill gap that they need? Inside of my Leadership HQ, we also have a diagnostic for leaders to assess their 4 leadership core competency areas. And it's not just a diagnostic of like, oh, let me see if they're ready or whatever it is. It's a consistent, predictable rhythm that I invite owners to consistently return to. And it's something that I teach inside of HQ because, again, one person at this level of leadership in this season might be doing amazing, but one of the leaders that we're coaching right now, she's having her first baby. So guess what? In her 3rd trimester, she's acting very differently than she did in her 1st trimester, or how she acted 3 years ago when she wasn't married or pregnant, right? So this is why rhythms of return are a critical part of developing leadership. And we want to break this generational cycle of having this field built on urgency, exhaustion, and survival. We need infrastructure. Thanks so much for joining me. Hey there. If you're the one who notices problems before anyone else does, this is for you. You're the one who sees things first. The tension in the room, the teacher sleeping who just might quit. You're already tracking the consequences. Who will be upset? Who will push back? So even on days that look fine or feel calm, your body doesn't fully stand down. You go to sleep tired and you wake up already bracing. Not because today is chaotic or any day is chaotic, but because something could go wrong. And you know you'll be the one that's holding it. It's the responsibility that can sometimes feel crushing. You stay alert, reliable, and steady because you've seen what happens when things aren't held. When communications slip, when standards soften, when everyone assumes someone else will step in. And because you're so good at holding it, more of it finds its way to you, quietly, gradually, until no one sees how heavy it's become. This is not burnout, and this is not a discipline problem. It's what I call the invisible weight of leadership. If you see yourself in this, or even if your breath changed just a little bit, that's enough. And if you want to keep going and learn more, the opening chapter of my book, This Can't Be Normal, What to Do When Success Starts to Feel Like Survival. My book continues this conversation. You can go ahead and download chapter 1 for free and continue this dialogue. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do 2 things for me. 1, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And 2, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week, and I appreciate that you have joined us.